October 29th, 2012, a date that millions of Americans living along the East Coast remember all too well. With over $70 billion in damages to the United States and over 250 lives lost from the Caribbean to the Northeast, Superstorm Sandy proved to those living in its path the true power of Mother Nature. Now, looking back 10 years on this historic event, Superstorm Sandy remains one of the most impactful storms in U.S. recorded history, leaving its mark on forecasters, communities, and the next generation of meteorologists.
Sandy really was such a unique storm in terms of its track, its size, its interaction with other systems nearby. It was really just kind of a perfect combination of ingredients, and it really led to a storm where, sure, it might have been a Category 1 intensity in terms of its maximum winds, but the sheer size of the storm and the population centers that it kind of targeted really made it something that part of the country and really the United States had not seen in an awfully long time.
On October 22, 2012, Sandy formed as a tropical depression in the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea. Within 2 days, the storm became a Category 1 hurricane with wind speeds of 80 miles per hour, making its first landfall 5 miles east of Kingston, Jamaica. This caused major flooding and landslides throughout the country, which resulted in roughly $2.8 billion in damages and 120 deaths. As the storm crossed back into the Caribbean, it strengthened into a Category 2 hurricane before making a second landfall in Cuba on October 25th, resulting in the loss of over 60 lives and destroying more than 15,000 homes. As the storm emerged into the Atlantic, strong wind shear from the mid-latitudes caused Sandy to become disorganized and weaken into a tropical storm. At this point, it seemed as if Sandy would fall apart entirely. However, with the help of the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, Sandy re-strengthened into a hurricane. As Sandy continued to move north and east towards Bermuda, a trough in the mid-latitudes would start to influence Hurricane Sandy. This would increase the storm's forward speed and broaden the wind field by hundreds of miles, causing the storm to undergo an extratropical transition. This means that Sandy would transform from a storm that relies on warm water and thunderstorms to a storm that is fueled by upper-level winds and strong temperature gradients. Finally, with a blocking high to the north, Superstorm Sandy would make its infamous westward turn, which the European forecast model predicted a week before. Along the New Jersey coastline, the storm's landfall occurred during a full moon high tide, which amplified the storm surge upwards of 14 feet. Additionally, Superstorm Sandy packed winds of up to 80 miles per hour with gusts nearing 100 in areas as far north as Connecticut and heavy rainfall of up to 12 inches in southern New Jersey. The mid-Atlantic coastline is no stranger to these strong storms. In fact, the region is used to being battered by powerful nor'easters each winter season, as well as the occasional landfall from a weaker-end hurricane or tropical storm, such as Irene in 2011. Since the East Coast had not seen a storm of this size and strength in many decades, some residents viewed Sandy as a non-threat.
They probably had that sort of complacency of, we got through this storm, Sandy's going to be, it's a weaker storm. It has a lower category on the Saffir-Simpson scale or something like that, so it's not going to affect us that bad.
In the wake of Sandy's destruction, over 8 million customers would be left without power due to downed power lines, and more than 500,000 homes would be damaged due to strong winds tearing down trees and record-breaking storm surge. Additionally, fires broke out due to breaks in natural gas pipes in the New Jersey beach town of Manahawkin and Breezy Point in Queens, New York. All in all, the total cost of damages soared to over $70 billion, making it one of the most expensive storms in U.S. history. From a messaging standpoint, Sandy was difficult to gauge how warnings would be issued. As the storm made its westward turn approaching its east coast landfall, Sandy was starting to develop extratropical characteristics, which caused the National Hurricane Center to remove the title of hurricane. Forecasters worried that this action would cause the general public to take the storm less seriously, even though it was just as dangerous.
They had a couple of choices. Either basically lie and say it was tropical, which kind of undermines your credibility a little bit, kind of going and thinking in the long-term perspective. Another one is, this is a dangerous storm, but if you're going to say it's no longer tropical, the current protocol is to stop doing advisories and make all of the Weather Service forecast offices be the ones to issue warnings and therefore make it seem like less severe of a threat.
In addition to the messaging problem, Sandy was also a forecasting challenge. It was a system which would interact with its environment in a way forecasters do not see very often in the mid-latitudes. By interacting with an incoming mid-latitude cyclone sweeping across the continental U.S., Sandy's impacts extended far from the coastlines into the Appalachians. Strong tropical storm force winds and even snow fell in the Appalachian Mountains, causing extensive damage to infrastructure and knocking out power for thousands of residents, leaving them in the frigid air. With a variety of damage coming from the impacts of Superstorm Sandy, many major landmarks in the region would be left in ruins. In Seaside Heights, New Jersey, a massive chunk of the casino pier would collapse during the storm. Farther north in Manahawkin, New Jersey, the ocean met the bay, carving out a new inlet where homes once stood, leaving only scattered debris when the water retreated. In New York City, the infrastructure surrounding the Statue of Liberty was badly damaged, and during the storm, a citywide blackout occurred with only pulses of light beaming from exploding transformers. The New York City subway system was also shut down for days due to flooding in 9 underground tunnels. Additionally, the PATH train system, which connects New York to New Jersey, took roughly a month to restore partial service due to the inundation. To this day, Superstorm Sandy remains a grim reminder to those living along the East Coast, and especially in my home state of New Jersey, that destructive storms are a part of our reality. However, Superstorm Sandy was also a source of inspiration for myself and many others who made it through the storm to pursue higher education in the study of meteorology, so that we can understand this type of phenomena and learn how we can better prepare our communities for the next major storm.
I did not notice a noticeable increase in our enrollment in the years after Sandy. So there wasn't a big bump in immediate enrollment, but I can see that many of our current students were impacted.
To this day, Sandy still stands as one of the most impactful storms in recent history due to its fascinating meteorological lifespan, as well as the variety of impacts it had on millions of lives throughout the eastern U.S., including this aspiring meteorologist. For Weather World, I'm Brian, Michigan.